And now for a highlighted segment from a previous Wisconsin Magazine program.
I was scared to death, and I'm not a drinker. I never have been all my life. But I was drinking straight whiskey and 2 aspirin tablets every few minutes because I was going to pieces. We figured at first that they were robbers of banks or something, and they were going to rob a bank up around here and get out. That's what we figured at first, because you don't have customers like that up here. That's unusual because the roads are so bad.
The customers were John Dillinger and his gang.
If you've ever vacationed in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, you've probably met someone who claimed to have known Al Capone or his brother Ralph, or perhaps knew someone who knew the gangsters. A certain folklore has arisen about this part of the state, how it was used as a retreat by Chicago renegades. In this story, we're going to look at 2 of these areas we know were used because the physical evidence remains here today.
Al Capone was a petty hoodlum in Brooklyn when he was brought to Chicago in 1919 by a gang chieftain. His timing was fortunate. For the next year, Prohibition became law. Capone prospered during most of the 13 years of Prohibition. His illegal dealings involved a host of public officials, which some believed included the very mayor of Chicago. But if Capone didn't need to hide from the law, he did need protection from rival gangs. One refuge was an extravagant hunting lodge he built near Coudray.
Capone's fear was never of the law. You could see Capone any place in Chicago. His fear was the opposing members of the different organizations that were trying to kill him and take his power from him. But the law never had any evidence on Capone to convict him of any crimes other than income tax evasion.
Jean Houston and her son own this lodge today. In the summer months, they operate a bar and restaurant on the grounds.
It's about 25 years ago. My husband acquired the estate in Chicago. It was tied up in an estate, and he had purchased it for his family as a retirement home. And it was that until 8 years ago, and the estate has been open to the public primarily by public demand. People always wanted to see how Al Capone and the gang lived back here.
His family never was up here. There was always a separation between the family and the extracurricular activities.
One of those extracurricular activities Guy Houston refers to is gambling. Capone especially liked dog and horse racing, and even had a boarding stable for race horses on the grounds. Some say Capone landed bootleg whiskey from Canada onto a secluded lake behind his lodge. Since 2/3 of the bootleg sold during Prohibition was smuggled in from Canada, and since Al's brother Ralph did own 2 small planes, it's entirely possible.
Nothing was ever heard of what went on back here. But of course, when they were back here, everything was heavily guarded, and there were no outsiders here that would have known what went on to begin with.
Yeah, I've been up there nights, and afternoons, and usually on weekends, but I never saw a guard around the place. There were men there. Maybe they were guards, but they weren't outside. Then there were no guns or nothing. Didn't look to me like guards. Most of them were in having a drink. But in Prohibition, nobody had some good whiskey.
Art Cry is 78. He's lived in Coudray on and off since 1905. Art says he was allowed inside the fortress and even hunted with Capone.
Outside of the few people that lived in this town, nobody even knew he was here. They knew the place was there. He never went anyplace, caused any trouble.
When Capone was finally taken off to prison for income tax evasion in 1931, John Dillinger was already serving a sentence for holding up a grocer in his hometown. Dillinger was paroled in 1933, and that same year began a short but infamous outlaw career. For a time, he seemed invincible, escaping one prison with a wooden pistol, changing his appearance with plastic surgery and his fingerprints with acid. Dillinger confined most of his bank robberies to his home state of Indiana, though he did lift some $28,000 from a bank in Racine. But if Dillinger usually left Wisconsin alone, he did stage his most famous shootout here One weekend in 1934, the gang converged on the Little Bohemia Resort in Manitowish waters. Emil Wanatka was just a lad when the band visited his parents' lodge.
They came Friday afternoon and Friday evening. The way my father put it, part of the gang came in the afternoon. I don't remember who. They came and they asked if they could put up, a party of 10 people, 6 men and 4 women. And at that time we were a resort and the rooms in the lodge. So he said yes.
Well, it was just like any ordinary people coming in to eat or drink. As they bent over the bar, you look down the bar like that, you could see inside where the vests gapped, and you could see the handle of the revolvers that they had. So he figured it was Dillinger when they were playing cards, because Dillinger had just escaped from Crown Point a short time before that, and his picture was in the paper.
When he saw the guns under the coats, then he knew, or he thought he knew who it was. And he finally called Dillinger on the side and told me, he says, I know that you're Dillinger, and I've got my family here. What's going to happen? And Dillinger said, we're going to stay for 2 or 3 days. When we leave, we'll pay you, and that'll be it.
The weekend retreat ended abruptly Sunday because of a package of cigarettes.
I had written a note and folded it up and shoved it in between the cigarettes and the light. And I said, yes, go ahead with our plans. That night, we had planned that my brother-in-law would go the first thing in the morning to Rhinelander and report it.
After the federal agents and the deputies and whatnot got here, some of the fellows were leaving. At the gate, the federal men tried to stop at the, halt where federal officers. The guy drove right straight on through, and that's what started the shooting. So all the shooting that took place at the lodge was after it started out by the gate. And when all this shooting took place, the dogs started to bark. Everybody went up the back stairs, took the money that they had gotten from the Racine Bank, kicked out a window, and went down the roof. Babyface Nelson went to the east. Dillinger went to the west.
When the smoke cleared, 2 were found dead, a federal agent and a local CCC worker mistaken to be a member of the Dillinger gang. The real gang escaped, less 3 women who were left behind. And it would be another 3 months before Melvin Purvis finally stopped Dillinger outside Chicago's Biograph Theater. These gangsters' ghosts live on in Wisconsin, partly because they are profitable ghosts.